Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Thank you all for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Evan Worley. I am back with another episode. Happy Tuesday to everybody out there listening. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I spent the weekend, once again, fixing up my sister's nursery for a new kid. Laying down, I don't know, there's like 3 different types of things that we laid down, like for the floor, to separate the wall from the floor. I don't know what that stuff's called at all whatsoever, but we spent a couple days doing that. Went to the movies for the first time since all of this went down, this whole quarantine stuff, and it was really weird, but also kind of tight because no one's even there. So like you don't really have to worry about anything like that. And then since no one's really fully back yet, and the chairs, like, it seems like all the chairs in the movie theaters now are like those recliner chairs that are like super comfortable and all that kind of stuff. They're so far apart that it doesn't even matter. Like, there's one seat in between you and you're chilling, and you don't have to worry about anything. So that was kind of tight. Went and saw the movie New Mutants, the Marvel movie, and man, that was I'm not a critic or anything, but that movie was some hot trash. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. If you're like a diehard like Marvel and like X-Men type of person, go ahead and see it. I'm a big Marvel person, I guess, but I'm not really that big into X-Men, so I didn't get any of the storyline. I didn't get any single person that was in there. None of it made sense to me at all. There were a ton of plot holes and everything like that. So if you're looking on seeing New Mutants, I would wait. If you are a subscriber of Disney Plus, I would just wait till the movie comes out on Disney Plus to watch it there. It'll save you about $12, and trust me, that movie it's not worth $12 at all whatsoever. But this isn't the GSMC movie pod. This is the GSMC baseball pod. So let's get into some baseball news. So first off, we had another drone delay up in Los Angeles this weekend. So a security guard actually came running on the field, like, to stop play, directing the umpires towards the sky to see, a drone flying over the field. And, both teams, this isn't the first time this has happened. So both teams were just, ordered to clear the field for a couple minutes and then wait until, the little drone flew away, and then play just resumed back as normal. Earlier in the week, there was a game between the Yanks and the Tampa Bay Rays where there was a drone delay at Yankee Stadium. There's other drone delays in Minnesota and Boston and all that kind of stuff. They actually had Kike Hernandez mic'd up, which is arguably one of my favorite players because he's one of the funniest dudes in the league. Hey, if you're not a big follower of celebrities on social media, I highly recommend just following Kike Hernandez, one of the funniest people on the internet. But he was quoted as saying, "It seems like we got a bit of a situation with the drone here," and then right before the what was it, the delay actually happened, and then when they got back from the delay, he joked around saying that the drone might have been Trevor Bauer of the Cincinnati Reds doing some scouting for a potential postseason matchup with the Dodgers, which I thought was a hilarious joke and pretty clever because everybody knows that Trevor Bauer, when he was with the Cleveland Indians, had to miss a start in the playoffs because he cut his finger really badly when he was flying his own drone. So just a little shot there. Yeah, I don't know where these drones are coming from. I don't know if like the people who live around the stadium are just flying their drones above the stadium. I don't know. It's been a little strange. I don't know how they even let like people. I don't know anything about drones, so I don't know if there's like a maximum distance that you can go with a drone before it like loses connection and stop working. Like I don't know any of that kind of stuff, but I figured you would have to be pretty close to be able to fly it that high and over Dodger Stadium, because like it showed that, you know, Kershaw and a bunch of players were like, they had to squint to like actually try and, you know, determine what it actually was that was, you know, flying around above the stadium until they realized it was a drone and they left. But I don't know. I think this has, like I said earlier, in, you know, with the ones in Boston and New York, it wasn't the first one, and it definitely will not be the last. And speaking of the Dodgers, so Joe Kelly actually made news this weekend. He had some comments to say with Bill Plunkett of the Orange County Register when asked about the suspension of Aroldis Chapman for throwing at the head of this Tampa Bay Rays player. He was quoted as saying, "It definitely looks kind of fishy. I obviously knew that Chapman was a person again, and with the language that they're using on me, it was always that I was a repeat offender. I already had one strike on my record, a previous suspension for throwing at a hitter, and Chapman had the same exact thing. But obviously, I've probably said a bit more words than Chapman said, because when he threw at him, Chapman didn't say anything. He just kind of like walked around and was like, didn't really think anything of it. When Joe Kelly was obviously like barking back at the Astros bench and everything, and then he made the famous, you know, sad face with the crying tears and everything like that. So that probably did a little bit more for the suspension than, you know, just kind of standing there. But one thing that Joe Kelly was also not mad at, or was mad at, he said, he's like, I don't think the words that I used to the people who make these decisions were very, very nice when the appeal process went down behind closed doors. So I ruffled some feathers. It just shows that their feelings get hurt, just like anyone else's feelings get hurt. So it is what it is. I would still like to know what they think, you know, what the difference is. And if it's not the same, what's the standard for it? Is it 3 games for the suspension and then 5 games for making a face or supposedly making the other team leave benches? That's a lot of games for that. They made a decision, and that's what it is. That's what he was like. So Joe Kelly has been barking back at Manfred. He's one of the more vocal players in the league, you know, barking against the Houston Astros and, you know, everything that they did. Granted, everybody came at the Astros, but he was the first infamous player to start doing that. You know, his suspension was reduced to 5 games after the appeal, but he hasn't served it yet because he's been on the injured list for so long. So that's definitely something that the Dodgers are going to have to keep an eye out on, especially, you know, with him going back and forth with the league. You know, the league might be out looking for him again. So, you know, if he makes a mistake, he could get another suspension just because he's on the bad side of the league. Weird developing story. Weird to see how the league handles this. Weird to see how Joe Kelly handles this, to be honest. You know, the Dodgers, their bullpen is underwhelming. They're doing fine this season, but whenever they get to the bullpen, they've been pretty underwhelming in the postseason. So they're definitely going to need Joe Kelly, especially if he's able to put together a 2018 type of season where he just was carving up everybody for the Boston Red Sox. Other news from this weekend: Jacob deGrom is he's 0.01 of an ERA point away from becoming the lowest ERA in Mets history. He is .01 above Tom Seaver, and who, as we all know, recently just passed away. And, he kept his streak going this week of just incredible starts after a game where he generated a career-high 35 swinging strikes. 35 swinging strikes. I could not believe it. Do you know how nasty you have to be to have 35 swings and misses? Just based off messing with someone's timing, messing up, disguising your rotation, disguising your pitches, like disguising, just throwing off timing and all that kind of stuff. Like, even if they get fooled badly, they'll just, MLB players will just take it. They'll all right, well, he got me, I'm not even going to swing. So the fact that he was able to get them on their front foot enough, or just completely fool them to the point where they generated 35 swinging strikes, tied with Clayton Kershaw and Danny Duffy for the most by a pitcher since league-wide pitch tracking began in 2008. So, if that was a thing, I can only imagine how much Pedro Martinez had back in the day. Maybe some, see what Nolan Ryan, Randy Johnson, hell, Tom Seaver, Bob Gibson, all these guys back in the day would, how many, their career highs would have been. But, when you're in the same, breath as Clayton Kershaw, who's undoubtedly been the best pitcher of this last decade, I don't think you can even argue that at all. You're in really good company, and Jacob deGrom is about to be, if he keeps this up, the best Met pitcher he is the best Met pitcher since Tom Seaver, but if he spends his career with the Mets and, still has this type of career with them until he retires, he could arguably take over that spot with Tom Seaver. You never really know. Some other surprising news. So, the Angels swept the Houston Astros this weekend. Now, yeah, that's weird, but you might be thinking, yeah, so they swept the Houston Astros. Like, what's the big deal? I get it, they've been bad, but, nothing too crazy. Well, it was their second ever 4-game sweep of the Astros, and their first since 2014. That was the second time that they've ever swept the Astros, and the last time they did it, the Astros were arguably the worst team in the league. That was the only time. When they were the worst team in the league, they swept them, and this was then they just did it again. And it was, not only that, it was their first 4-game series sweep against any club since they did it against the Mariners August 10th through 13th, 3 years ago. They had not had a 4-game sweep of any team in 3 years. I honestly could not believe it. Like, I know that the Angels have been underachievers for, God, who knows how long. Probably since their playoff run where they won the West in 2015, which they eventually got knocked out by the Kansas City Royals. It was I think it was 2014, actually. It could have been 2014 or 2015 when they won the AL West. I knew it was one of those 2 years. But, they've been playing really good baseball as of late. They've improved to 8-3 over the last 11 games. They are currently sitting 8 games. Ooh, sorry, I had to scratch my eye there. They're currently sitting at 8 games below 500, 5 games behind second place Houston with 18 games remaining. Now, definitely not going to get to second place, in the AL West and solidify themselves a playoff spot. But Joe Madden still believes that the club isn't out yet, obviously. He's got, he's the coach. He has to really figure stuff like that out. But one thing that they can hang their hats on is this is a great building block. Joe Madden comes in, and within the first year, he really is able to turn things around. He was able to do it with the Tampa Bay Rays. He was able to do it with the Cubs, and now it looks like he's on his way to doing it with the Anaheim Angels. And, their starters, the Angels' starting pitching has actually been surprisingly good as of late. They've combined to post, a actually respectable 2.95 ERA over the last 10 games. Their main issue, which, Madden admitted needs to do a lot better, is their bullpen. They've currently lead the majors with 12 blown saves this year. This is nothing new. If you lived in, LA, kept up with the Angels at all, their bullpen has been something that has kind of always been an issue with them. Even when they were good, their bullpen was an issue. But, besides the 2000, the mid 2000s, when they went and, won the AOS like 4 or 5 years in a row, their bullpen was a real strong suit. It was just their starting rotation was really bad. This year, ever since that kind of happened, they went back and, kind of regressed and saw that their bullpen has been a huge issue. So that's definitely something that, we should keep an eye out for the off season when free agents start popping back up, because every year it seems like they just ignore their bullpen. But with Joe Madden preaching, hey, the bullpen needs work, they could be really big buyers in the off season this year. So let's see how that one goes for the Angels. I hope they really turn it around, because everybody wants to see Mike Trout in the postseason. I mean, if you don't, then that's kind of ridiculous. I'll end it off with this. So we also saw a 4-time All-Star with no Grand Slams in his entire career hit 2 in the span of 48 hours, and that is Freddie Freeman of the Atlanta Braves. So Freddie Freeman had 104 plate appearances with the bases loaded before he hit his first Grand Slam, and then it only took him 2 more ABs with the bases loaded before he was able to hit his second. 2 Grand Slams this weekend against the Nationals. He homered, like I said, 2 of his last 3 plate appearances, and he also, in between those 2 dingers, he flew out with the bases loaded. 1,383 career games for him to hit his first Grand Slam, and it took him 1 to get his second. Absolutely insane week of baseball. The Braves were crushing it left and right. I had a field day watching them this weekend. All right, everybody, that is our first segment. I will be taking a quick break, and I will be going over what would happen if the playoffs started tomorrow. I will be right back after these messages.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, everybody, and we are back. So, let's talk playoffs. So, I'm going to talk about the teams on the outside looking in as of right now. So, as of right now in the National League, we have the Reds 2 games back, the Brewers a game back, the Mets a game back, and the Marlins are actually tied, but they're out on winning percentage points, based off their, lack of games played compared to the 8th-seeded Giants. They are on the outside looking in. In the American League, we have the Mariners are surprisingly only 3 games back. The Tigers are still in the hunt with 18 games left in the season at only 2 games back. And the Orioles have fought their way back into the playoff picture after they took 3 out of 4 this weekend against the New York Yankees. They're 2 games out of the 8th seed, which actually is the Yankees now. They are the 3rd team in the AL East to be to in the rankings. So let's start off with the 1-8 seed would be the Dodgers versus the Giants. So the Dodgers versus the Giants, everybody knows, has always been a heated series, back and forth. You never know who's going to take the series. There's, it's probably, not even probably, I think it's guaranteed the second best rivalry in the sport, only behind Yankees-Red Sox when the Yankees are on and the Red Sox are on at the same time. This year it's been a total dud because the Yankees have taken like 9 out of the last 10 against the Bo Sox. So going into this series, I honestly can't see it lasting very long. I could see a 3-1 Dodgers. I could see maybe a 3-2 Dodgers, but there is absolutely no way that I could see the San Francisco Giants taking the Dodgers, just taking them down in the first round. I mean, this is 2020. This is a shortened season. This is a brand new playoff system. So really, it's that old cliche of, hey, anything can happen, but I doubt that would actually happen. Moving on to the 2-7 matchup, it is the Braves versus the Rockies. Now, this is one of the only teams, the Colorado Rockies are one of the only squads that I would be confident in the Braves taking down in the first round of the postseason. So I'm looking at it right here where they would be playing the Rockies, obviously. I see them taking down the Rockies. I think that is a series that they will not disappoint me in. I think that they will go in and they will actually win that series in 4. And I really do like the draw in the second round, too. I feel like the Atlanta Braves have a good chance, if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, to make the NLCS. I can't see them making it farther than the NLCS, mainly because, their starting rotation has been bad. Well, they haven't been bad. It's just that they're thin. That's a better way to put that. And, they have normally a long reliever who is in the starting rotation, and in Josh Tomlin, who just had his best career start in like the last 4 years, where he gave up 3 runs this weekend. So not looking good in the starting rotation. But there's another thing that's good about the playoffs is it's the first round's a 5-game series. Second round is a 7-game series. So you can look at it as like, a 3-man rotation. You can really get the job done. And I feel like if they were to put Max Fried in that rotation, they could give the ball to Ian Anderson. I would really enjoy that. And then I don't even know. Like, I honestly can't even tell you our second best pitcher as of right now. I can't do it. For the Atlanta Braves, I cannot tell you our second best pitcher, but I know Max Fried is in there. Obviously, he's one of the best pitchers in the game right now. And, I feel like Ian Anderson can really get some quality outs if we're able to throw. But the way that the Braves have been hitting, the way that, the Rockies pitching staff is, I feel like that would be an easy 3-1 series win for the Atlanta Braves. Going on to the Chicago Cubs and the Philadelphia Phillies, the 3-6 matchup. The Cubs have struggled so mightily out of the leadoff position this season. I think their leadoff batters are hitting sub 200. They've had not much power numbers. They haven't had a great on-base percentage. So they do kind of struggle to start off the games. And I think the Philadelphia Phillies are one of the hottest teams in the league right now. And, I get that the Cubs are, looked at. They started off the season like 10-2, 8-2, something like that. 13. They were more than that though. They were like 16-3 or something. Like an insane start to the season. But I don't see them as the team to beat. I actually think that the Philadelphia Phillies could come in and take this series from the Chicago Cubs if it were to start today. If the Cubs match up with the Phillies, the way that the Phillies have been just mashing the baseball, they've kind of figured out their starting rotation a little bit. If they were able to do a 3-man rotation, I feel like they would, come in and, be able to take down the Chicago Cubs, in 5 games. Or I think it's 3 games. It is 3 games. It's 3 games. All at the home stadium. I don't even know what I'm thinking right now. My God. So yeah, even easier. I feel like the Phillies could take 2 out of 3 against the Cubs. They're one of the hottest teams, and the Cubs are really just relying on homers. Like, whenever I watch the Cubs, they're not really manufacturing runs that well. Granted, I'm not, tuning into Cubs games as much as I probably should. But I just like the Phillies, the way that they've been playing a lot more than how the Cubs have been playing. And then I think this matchup is the most intriguing of the whole series. It is the San Diego Padres versus the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, the San Diego Padres, I think, are going to move up. Actually, I don't think they're going to move up. I think they're going to stay the 4 seed. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be able to stay the 5 seed. I think the Phillies will probably overtake them, just jump over them in the standings. But as of right now, Padres, Cardinals, I got the Padres winning 2 out of 3. I don't think they would beat Jack Flaherty in game 1, but games 2 and 3, I don't think that Dakota Hudson or, maybe if they threw Carlos Martinez or, as like an opener, I guess. I don't know who they would be throwing for the St. Louis Cardinals, but whoever they would be throwing, I don't think they could take down the Padres. I think the Padres are too stacked, especially in such a quick 3-game series, which would put the Padres against the Dodgers in the second round. I feel like that's a slugfest. The way that the Padres have been able to go out and really attack their weakness of the pitching staff. They got another starter, Mike Clevenger. They really went after the bullpen. They got another big bat in Mitch Moreland, who's playoff ready. I feel like the Padres could be the team to take down the Dodgers this year. They meet them in the postseason. It's, Mookie Betts versus Tatis. I think that the way that the Padres have been able to manufacture their pitching staff will, ultimately be the deciding factor over the Los Angeles Dodgers, putting the San Diego Padres in the NLCS. And then this is the Braves versus the Phillies in the second round. See, the Phillies got the hot bats, and the Braves have the subpar starting pitching. But I do feel like the Atlanta Braves will be able to slug their way out of the series with the Phillies, just based off of, what they've been able, just familiarity. I feel like the one thing that always gets them every year is they play a team from the NL West that they're not the best at, they don't have the greatest rapport against. And, they always end up just getting carved every postseason. I feel like this year is the year, especially with the addition of Marcell Ozuna and just how he's been killing it. Dansby Swanson has been hitting the ball better than he ever has in his entire career. I feel like the Braves have enough to get them past the Philadelphia Phillies, putting it being Braves, Padres in the AL or in the NLCS. I'll be coming back to that one after I break down these, after we move on to the American League. So in the American League, we have the Tampa Bay Rays as the number 1 overall seed versus the number 8 seed New York Yankees. Who would have thought before the season that the New York Yankees would have been the 8th seed in the postseason, only 2 games ahead of the Orioles and the Tigers? And they have, not going to lie, they have a pretty rough schedule at the end of the year. Everybody, including me, said they had the lowest strength of schedule after September 2nd. Well, they have a pretty rough schedule now. There's been some surprise teams coming in. I cannot pick the Yankees as of right now in this series. I think that the Rays are red hot. The Yankees are spiraling out of control. I have the Rays topping the Yankees 2-0. Easy, quick 2 games and they're out. We have in the 2-7, I think this is easily the most interesting. This one by far is the most interesting to me. It's the White Sox versus the Twins. Now the Twins, their whole issue is they never really make the playoffs, and when they do make the playoffs, they run into the Yankees, and it really psychs them out when they get there. I mean, the last time they went to the postseason and they didn't face the Yankees, they went all the way to the ALCS to face the Anaheim Angels in 2002 when the Angels won the World Series. So could the White Sox be a team where they walk into the postseason and go, oh, we got them? Because in both series against the White Sox, they have taken 2 out of the 3. So I can see the Twins walking into Chicago and just bombarding the White Sox and just carving them up and just experience over inexperience, really, and getting them out of the postseason. I love the White Sox. I thought that they would be a great team coming in, but I don't feel like they have the experience to be able to, go very deep in the postseason. So I would actually say that I would take the Twins over the White Sox in an upset, 2-1 in that series. Moving on to 3-6, we have the Athletics and the Astros. It's kind of funny how this all played out. It's pretty much, division rivals against each other all across the board. But we got the Athletics and the Astros. The Astros are they're always kind of hot, but not really hot. And then the Athletics, they're able to, mash some teams around and just, beat the living daylights out of some teams that are really good. So I feel like the Oakland Athletics actually have this series under wraps. I think it's a 2-1 series win for the Oakland A's. And then I would say this is second most interesting. Like, out of the whole weekend, this is the second most interesting. It is the number 4 Cleveland Indians, who arguably could jump up to number 2 because they're in a heated race with the White Sox to face off against number 5, the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, the Blue Jays are one of the hotter teams, probably the hottest team in the league. I will, get to them in the next segment. But, with the Blue Jays, how they went from, this team is good and be good in a couple years, to complete buyers at the deadline, just kind of shocking everybody. I feel like the pitching for Cleveland is going to be able to overwhelm the young, the youth and the athleticism and the energy of the Blue Jays. And, with Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez and, all these guys, Roberto Perez, been to the World Series. They've been through the postseason before, and there's been a lot of new guys in Toronto. I just feel like the Cleveland Indians will take that series, but that will be, I can see that game going the full 3, and probably being the most exciting of the entire weekend, which would put the Cleveland Indians versus the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, the Tampa Bay Rays, going into that, they have great pitching. We all know about that. And their offense is really rounding out. They're not, they're not going to bash your brains in with some kind of elaborate offense. But Cleveland's pitching matchup, it matches pretty well with the Tampa Bay Rays. And I think that the Cleveland Indians have a better offense than the Tampa Bay Rays. So in a 1-4 matchup, I got the number 4 seed Cleveland over the Tampa Bay Rays, moving on to the ALCS. And then out of the 3-7 series, I got, it's the Oakland Athletics versus the Minnesota Twins. I don't trust the Twins. The Twins come in and they have good pitching. They have Randy Dobnak, who's been absolutely incredible this year. They have so many home run hitters in their lineup. Byron Buxton is just competing on a level that he hasn't you haven't seen before, because he's always hurt. And this year, if he's able to stay healthy, I feel like he's a lot more important than anybody really gives him credit for. But I just feel like the Oakland Athletics would come in and just, I would say they would take that series in 4. I feel like, they're the team that you can never count out. They've had so many walk-off grand slams this year. They've just been able to fight their way through any type of adversity. So I would have Cleveland versus Oakland in the ALCS. Now, if you looked at me before the season and you said that the Braves versus Padres and Cleveland versus Oakland would be your championship series, you would have, I would have said, you would have told me that I was crazy. But right now, it still kind of makes sense. I don't think anybody really thinks it's that crazy that these teams would make it to the championship series. In this case, I don't feel like the Braves have what it takes to get past the San Diego Padres. The Padres have the bats. They have the starting pitching. They have the bullpen help. I am all in on the San Diego Padres. Put me all in on the bandwagon. I am going San Diego in the World Series versus... Now for the AL, The Cleveland Indians pitching incredible. Their offense, I don't really trust it. Oakland's pitching is amazing. Offense, they are just able to come back. Cleveland is always shaky because they just took down Josh Hader. Josh Hader looked like one of the most unstoppable pitchers in the MLB. He just broke the record for hitless outings, and he still got mashed by the Cleveland Indians. So they may have figured something out. I personally don't know. I'm going out on a limb right here, and I'm going San Diego versus the Oakland Athletics in the World Series. Now, in the strictly California World Series, San Diego versus Oakland, you have premier pitching. We just saw this over the weekend. Fernando Tatis just mashing 2 dingers this weekend. You have the Oakland A's, just never say die team. This would probably be my favorite World Series of the last 20 years, besides the Angels in 2002 when I was 7 years old and I was a diehard Angel fan at that point. This will probably be my favorite World Series, and I would say the most entertaining World Series besides the 2017 Cheater Series. So, in this, I can't believe I'm actually picking this team to win the World Series. All in, 100%, can't break me now. I am picking the San Diego Padres to win the World Series. Bet it. Actually, don't bet it, because a lot of things can change up until that point, and that's just if the World Series, if the playoffs started tomorrow, but they don't. Anyways, I will be taking a quick break, and I will be coming back with, there was an article breaking down the 3 surprise teams of the season, and 2 of them aren't really a surprise if you really listen to this show. I've been hyping them up ever since the very first episode I was on, so, I'll be talking about that and just how they're going to finish this season. But before that, I will be taking a quick break. I will be right back with a word from our sponsors.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, everybody, and we are back again. Thank you so long for sticking around this far in the episode. As you know, I really appreciate it. Now, we are going to spend this time talking about the 3 quote-unquote surprise teams of the season. Now, 2 of these teams are not a surprise at all whatsoever. Like, we were talking about them well before the season started, and, we're still really high on them going into this far. They've surprised maybe a few who weren't paying attention, but the few, to the ones who were really paying attention to how they were shaping around their off seasons, this isn't really a surprise. But I'm going to start off with a team that is surprising everybody, and that is the Buffalo, aka Toronto Blue Jays. Now, they're surprising us because Kevin Biggio has been an on-base machine this year. He has been absolutely killing the game this season. Lourdes Gurriel, he can explode on any single game. Teoscar Hernandez has been one of the best power hitters in the league this year. And, you know, it's been so crazy to watch them. Like, even if you're not a Blue Jays fan, it's just so fun to see, you know, the surprise teams of the year. Like, a lot of people, you know, I went to the University of Minnesota. I did not expect their football team to go, you know, to win 10 games and, you know, be in a college football playoff hunt last year, but they did, and it was the most exciting thing. I mean, we were the storyline of college football, and, you know, that was just so fun to live. So I can only imagine how high the Toronto Blue Jays fans are riding. You know, Bo Bichette, he's hitting .361 with a .672 slugging percentage. You know, he's gearing up to return pretty soon, and you know they've been winning without him. A guy who's batting .361, they're arguably their best player, is been gone, and they are winning without it. Like Rowdy Tellez is slugging in the 500s. It's insane. Like, they have Robbie Ray, they have Taijuan Walker, Hyun-Jin Ryu. Like, these guys, they have a 3-man rotation that could compete in the postseason. And, you know, they have, you know, they have a decent bullpen. You know, they're really looking like a team that is built to compete. But here is the issue with them. They're playing, you know, their last, 6th series against stiff competition, and by stiff competition I mean pretty much half the rest of their games are against one team in which they haven't played this season. They have 2 of their last 6 series are against teams that they've actually played, but they have winning records against both those teams, so we can kind of, you know, we'll see how well they'll be able to handle the adversity. So they are 6-4 in their last 10 games. Nothing too special, but I mean, they've been riding so high ever since, you know, they kind of took over. They took over the second spot in the AL East. They're the number 5 team in the postseason right now. Like, they are playing insane baseball. They have 3 games at home versus the Yanks, 3 games at home versus the Mets, 3 games on the road versus the Yanks, 4 games on the road in Philadelphia, 4 games at home versus the Yanks, and 3 games versus Baltimore at home. So they have yet to play the Yanks this year. They have yet to play the Mets this year, but they're 2-0 against the Philadelphia Phillies. They have a 4-game set on the road in Philadelphia, and you know, they should. Philadelphia has been hot ever since then, so, you know, it's not going to be, you know, an easy sweep. It's not, I don't think it'll be 3-1. I think the best that will happen will be a 2-game split of the series, and then there are 3 games against Baltimore. They're 6-1 against the Baltimore Orioles this year. I don't think that will even change at all whatsoever. And, you know, they do have a legit opportunity to make the postseason this year, especially if Robbie Ray is able to, you know, really locate his pitches and, you know, kind of feel like he's a solid pitcher again. Like, we all covered it. Everybody who covers baseball knows that Robbie Ray was really good a couple years ago, and then he just kind of lost his mojo. And, you know, just a change of scenery, it's happened so many times in the past. It could happen. It could, you know, be the spark that he needed to go out there and really kill it. So, I mean, if Robbie Ray gets hot, Taijuan Walker gets hot, and Hyun-Jin Ryu just pitches like Hyun-Jin Ryu should, hold on. Like, really hold on. This team is exciting enough to be able to, you know, take down the Cleveland Indians if they were to face them in the postseason this year. Who really knows at the end of the day? That's going to be a huge thing that I'm going to be looking out for. Is I am definitely going to be watching more and more of the Toronto Blue Jays just to see where they take it. I feel like this is the year that they can really, you know, go out there and make a statement. Moving on to the teams that, you know, are quote-unquote surprises. The San Diego Padres. You know, it's like they have been, you can argue they've underachieved the past few years, especially ever since that they made that big deal to get James Shields and Justin Upton. You know, and then with the signing of Eric Hosmer, the signing of, you know, Manny Machado, you know, they were really invested in their team, but they just weren't able to crank out any wins. And then Fernando Tatis came up, and he is just absolutely insane. No one needs to say really anything about Tatis that hasn't been said before. And they've actually came out and just bought everybody they could at the trade deadline. Eric Hosmer has been killing it this year. Will Myers seems like he's actually, refocused and revitalized and, ready to, he was tired of hearing everybody, talk bad about him because, he gave us nothing. He was really not that great for the San Diego Padres, and then, he gets this youthful energy and they realize, hey, this team can actually win now, and, he's playing like a legitimate, I wouldn't say a star, but he's a very good piece for that team. Adding Trevor Rosenthal. I think the addition of Trevor Rosenthal is the reason why I boosted them to my World Series. I feel like there's nothing more important than, the back end of the bullpen, especially in the postseason. You need that so much. That's why the Yankees dynasty was so crazy. That's why the A's were really good, because they had Dennis Eckersley back in the day. The Angels, they won the World Series off Troy Percival and Francisco Rodriguez and Scott Shields in the back end of their bullpen. The back end of the bullpen was the reason why the Texas Rangers lost back-to-back World Series. The back end pitching was the reason why the San Francisco Giants won 3 World Series in 6 years. Like, it's so important, and just being able to beef that up, it looks like they are going to be dominant and really just going for the kill this year. They are currently 6-4 in their last 10 games. They have a 3-game set against Colorado, a 4-game set against San Francisco. They got a 3-game set against the Dodgers, 3 against the Seattle Mariners, 2 more games against the Angels, and then closing out the year with a 3-game set on the road in San Francisco. So they don't have the best record against these teams coming up. They're 4-3 against Colorado, 2-1 against San Francisco, 3-4 against the Los Angeles Dodgers, 1-2 against Seattle, and they split the series 1-1 against the Los Angeles Angels a couple weeks ago. So, I don't know, man. The Padres have been hot. They've been absolutely crushing the ball, unstoppable. And with all these additions, I feel like they'll be able to, win most, if not all, of these series. I feel like the one that's really up there for them to drop is the 3-game set versus the Dodgers, and then they might drop the last series against San Fran on the road, because it looks like San Fran is going to be really pushing for that postseason, for that 8th seed going into the playoffs. So we'll see how that series ends up. If they might be trying to play spoilers, really put the Padres in a weird position in the standings for a matchup. You know how it goes. The season might be over for you, but you might, have the opportunity to end it for somebody else, and that always motivates teams to play a little bit harder than they actually, really need to at that time. So it's going to be exciting end of the road for the Padres. I've been watching all year. I will continue to be watching. It is insane. Now, moving on to the hottest team in the books, a team that I've been high on since the very first episode. It's the White Sox. No surprise here. The White Sox, people overlooked them all offseason, but I think every single big-time baseball, analyst, I'm not really an analyst per se, I just follow the sport. Everybody's been high on them. Like, you can't say anything more about this team. When they played the Chicago Cubs, it seemed like every ball they hit was bouncing off the scoreboard. They're beating teams by manufacturing runs. They have the only no-hitter of this season. They have Dallas Keuchel, who absolutely carved up. I forget who they were playing yesterday, but he carved them to pieces. You have so many players who are hitting homers. You got, Luis Robert, who's out making highlights every single freaking day. You have Eloy Jimenez, who's just dropping tank after tank. You have Edwin Encarnacion running around with the parrot around him. Tim Anderson is bringing the swag to baseball. It's so insane. Ever since I, talked about Yasmani Grandal being terrible, he's picked it up. Yohan Moncada's, he's really picking it up. Dylan Cease has been, a really good third starter, and could really take over that third position or that third rotation spot going into the postseason. It's absolutely just insane. And to think all of that, and I never even mentioned Jose Abreu. Like, Jose Abreu was throwing himself into the MVP conversation. He had like 7 homers in a weekend. Like, this dude was unstoppable. And he's not even one of the first, like, 5-6 people to come up when you're thinking about the Chicago White Sox, because he's just an absolute machine and how much fun he is to watch. They are the number 2 seed in the American League, second best record, just past the Oakland Athletics for that. You have the Cleveland Indians. You know, they're fighting with them for that spot. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games, and they have a pretty favorable schedule heading towards, you know, the end of the season. They have 2 more games against Pittsburgh. They're 2-0 against Pittsburgh this season. 3 games versus Detroit. They're 6-1 against the Detroit Tigers. They have a 4-game set versus Minnesota. They're 2-4 versus Minnesota, which is why I had Minnesota beating them actually in the postseason. I feel like the same thing's going to happen. They might split the series, but Minnesota kind of has their number this year. They have 3 games on the road at Cincinnati. They've yet to play this year. A 4-game set versus Cleveland, at Cleveland, which is surely going to be a big series because, you know, they're neck and neck for the number 1 team in the AL Central. You know, they could be vying for a number 1 overall seed in the postseason. And it's going to be the second to last series they have on the entire season. So that is looking like it's going to be one of the biggest series of the, you know, last couple weeks of the season. You know, it can really change a lot of things going into the playoff picture. And then they're going to round the year off with a home series versus the Chicago Cubs, which they took 2 out of the 3, and they absolutely bashed the Cubbies in. So these teams, like we've been saying for so long, these teams are incredible. They're so fun to watch. I mean, you can't listen to me, you know, do this podcast over and over again and just avoid watching these teams because, I mean, they're so fun. And, you know, it's going to be an exciting end of the season. None of these teams have clinched anything. They're all still vying for a playoff spot for the first time in a very long time, and they're looking to strike. They smell blood in the water, and they are going after it. Alrighty, everybody, I'm about to take my final break, and we will be back with the series to watch for the week. Give me one moment. I will be right back after the break.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
All right, everybody, we are back. So you know how we have to close each episode. It's what to watch for. I have ESPN.com open right now, and I have Tuesday, September 8th, and Wednesday, September 9th open right here, because that's as far as they will go. For some reason, they can't map out the whole series. It's okay. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But I'm looking at the pitching matchups. I'm looking at the series ahead of us, and there are some games to watch. Like, I'm just looking at the pitching matchups and just the games in general, and there are some juicy ones in here. So let's start off with the first game on Tuesday. At 2:15 Central, we have the Minnesota Twins and the St. Louis Cardinals. Cardinals have not announced who they're going to throw, but Jose Barrios is going to be taking the mound for the Minnesota Twins. You know, both of them are still competing for their, you know, division crown and that very coveted third spot in their in the postseason, maybe move up, maybe move down. The Twins are barely hanging on. They're the 7th seed right now, so they really need to, come out and have a game. And, they're taking note because they have Jose Barrios throwing, and then also in the latter half of the doubleheader, they have Randy Dobnak pitching. So they're definitely coming out, and they smell blood in the water, and they know that they have to kill it. So that is going to be a great day if you're a Twins fan. Twins baseball is on an all-time high. Undecided for the St. Louis Cardinals. Then it has Daniel Ponce de Leon throwing later in the day. So, Dobnak versus De Leon is going to be a great matchup. I will definitely be tuning into that one if I can't make it to the 2:15 matchup. Moving on down, you have Jacob Junis versus Tristan McKenzie for the Kansas City Royals versus the Cleveland Indians. Anytime Tristan McKenzie throws now, I am watching. I don't care what anybody says. This kid is electric. He's bringing the swag back to baseball, along with so many other players like Lindor, Javi Baez, all these guys who are just out there. They just don't care, bat flipping, doing everything they can do. Tristan McKenzie is going to be that guy. He's going to be electric on the mound. He's going to talk his talk, and he's going to walk his walk, and I will not be missing a single game that he throws anymore. You got that. That is going to be on MLB Network actually at 5:10 Eastern or Pacific or not Pacific time, Central time. Sorry, I've lived in every single time zone besides Central. What is it? So we got Oakland and Houston that same day. You have Chris Bassett versus undecided. So that we don't know who's throwing for the Houston Astros. You got Chris Bassett for the Oakland A's. I feel like the Oakland A's are coming out. Anytime that they face the Houston Astros, it is full throttle. No one is all gas, no brakes, and this is going to be nothing different. I feel like this is going to be a major slugfest, and I feel like the Oakland A's are going for the kill and really just setting themselves apart in the AL West. The Houston Astros have been, they've fallen a little bit. They came back up. They've fallen. They've came back up. They've never really had a chance, really, to take the crown away from the Oakland Athletics, and I don't feel like they're going to get that opportunity right now. I feel like Oakland is going to come in and just absolutely try and dominate this series. We have the Yankees at the Toronto Blue Jays, and we have J.A. Happ versus Taijuan Walker. Now, just off the implications of the playoffs alone, I'm going to be watching this game, but knowing that the pitching matchup is J. Happ and Taijuan Walker, I can't wait for this series. I cannot wait to watch this game. It will definitely be one of the 4 screens. I love that MLB TV. You can have 4 games on at the same time. It's absolutely beautiful. But yes, I'm definitely going to be turning into that game. I feel like that is going to be a slugfest, and the Yankees are kind of like wounded, wounded rattlesnakes, just chilling, just trying to snap at anybody because they know that they're, they're one bad game away from, not from getting out of the postseason picture, when they were one of the best teams in the bigs to start the season. Let's see, moving down, any more games that are really... I would watch this game just because Sixto Sanchez is amazing. You have the Miami Marlins at the Atlanta Braves. You got Sixto Sanchez versus Kyle Wright. You can see if Kyle Wright actually turns it around and, really shows his true potential. And Sixto Sanchez, he got the Pedro Martinez stamp of approval the other day, so anytime that he's throwing, we should be tuning into that one. I will definitely be watching that game. Let's see, moving on, John Means versus Michael Wacha. That'll be entertaining. Nothing too crazy, though. We have Zach Greinke actually throwing for Houston in the back end of the doubleheader versus the Oakland Athletics. The Athletics are actually undecided on who they're throwing in the second game. So Zach Greinke on the mound versus the Oakland Athletics. Definitely tuning into that one. Yep, mark that one down. You got Chichi Gonzalez versus Mike Clevenger in the Colorado-San Diego game. Definitely tuning into that one. San Diego really needs to keep their foot on the gas pedal, really solidifying themselves as the 4th team in the NL. And they, who knows, they could possibly come up and catch the Dodgers, even though the Dodgers seem like they just win every single game. Speaking of the Dodgers, Walker Buehler versus Luke Weaver. That'll probably be a slugfest, but mainly just on the Dodgers' part. A good game to go to sleep to, I guess, if you're everybody on the East Coast. Let's see. Let's go on to Wednesday. We have Milwaukee and Detroit. Matthew Boyd versus Corbin Burns. That should be a pretty good matchup. I like watching Matthew Boyd. I like seeing the Detroit Tigers. Both these teams are fighting for a playoff spot. I feel like this game is going to be huge. Have huge implications if the Detroit Tigers can take care of that. And who knows? Maybe the Toronto Blue Jays are coming out and they are just whacking the daylights out of the Yankees. The Detroit Tigers could find themselves as the 8th seed by the end of the week. Who really knows? You got Danny Duffy versus Cookie Carrasco, Devi Garcia versus Tanner Roark, Dane Dunning versus JT Brubaker. That's not a bad matchup at all whatsoever. Let's see, going down the list, Antonio Senzatella versus Zach Davies. The undisputed best matchup of the entire week, hands down, bar none. Trevor Bauer versus Yu Darvish. You have two of the best pitchers in baseball going up against each other. That is can't miss TV. You got Jesus Luzardo throwing Wednesday for the Oakland Athletics. Clayton Kershaw throwing on Wednesday. Like Kershaw, Luzardo, Bauer, Darvish, Davies. You got Davy Garcia, Carlos, Cookie Carrasco, and Matthew Boyd. Like, there's so many good pitchers coming on Wednesday. It is unbelievable. Like, this is a great week of baseball. So many matchups with so much importance on them. Like, the Chicago White Sox, they're playing against Pittsburgh, so, they're coming out and they can't take anything for granted. Pittsburgh's been playing a little bit better than they have earlier in the season. Chicago really they cannot take a day off, especially with the Cleveland Indians. They're throwing out Cookie Carrasco and Tristan McKenzie trying to, really get themselves the number 1 seed in the AL Central. Like, that is a 3-team absolute fight for a divisional crown. Is the most exciting thing in baseball. Like, everybody I couldn't believe when people were saying that the AL Central was going to be the worst in baseball. I could not believe it. Because I was like, there's 3 quality teams. Really good quality teams are chilling in the AL Central. How can it be a bad division? And all 3 of those teams are playing tremendous baseball and are beating the snot out of anybody who comes near them. And, the team that they, everybody preseason had 3rd is winning the AL Central at this moment. It's unbelievable. It's been an exciting year of baseball. I can't wait to watch these games. And all right, everybody, that is going to be our show. We will be back on Friday with a brand new episode. Enjoy your week, enjoy your families, and be sure to enjoy this week's slate of baseball. You can follow me on Instagram at EvanWorley23. Play me in Tap Baseball. If you're bored, the nickname is EvanWorley23, and I would like to thank you all for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review, because that really helps us out. And if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you all. Have a good week, and I will be back with you on Friday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.